welcome to the last build video of the S15. Now, this is a little bit out of context because we're currently building the R32, but we figured we'd finish that series before we start posting the build videos for the R32 GTR. So, yeah, a little bit late. The only reason we never posted it back then is because we just, as soon as the car was finished, we were flat out at events, and we've been flat out all year with events and building other cars and customers' cars and stuff like that, it just hasn't been a priority to get that video done and post it. But here it is. You'll see the last process when the car's on the dyno. Yeah, enjoy the video, and straight after this one pretty much we're going to be getting on with build videos for the R32 GTR, which is almost done and almost ready to ship out to the Arctic Circle in a few weeks. So yeah, enjoy. So as you saw in the previous videos, we got all the subframes in, got the car rolling, whole underside painted. Now we've moved it into the other workshop. So we've got rear brakes on, 350Z, rear calipers, just single caliper at the moment. I have got another caliper to go on it, but I've got to change the whole rear setup to do that. Outside. So we're now getting on with all the hoses. Start getting all the bay together. Oil filter relocation mounted, oil coolers mounted. One line from the old setup still works, so we use that. Just making up hoses at the minute. This one goes underneath the manifold, goes from the front of the engine where the thermostat housing is to the back, because we're not running a heater in this car because it's got a heated screen. So we just made this one up. I'm going to get this one in now. So yeah, oil filter relocation is down there. Got to make up some lines there. Made a new turbo drain this morning, which fits a bit better with the new turbo. Obviously BC coilovers now in there. And the wires fab's all done. We've got the wires fab top mounts in there. Going to carry on doing the oil lines that we can, waiting for a few more fittings. Once those are done, I'm going to start getting the clutch master, brake master and all those sorts of bits in. Connor and I have been starting the wiring loom. So we've got everything written down of where it all needs to go, little plan of the car, mounted PMU and stuff like that. We've got the first bunch of wires around, basically making up the car into different sections. So you've got rear loom, which does fuel pumps, rear lights, number plate lights, side lights, fuel pumps, fuel level sender and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously that comes back through the car, comes down to the PMU for the fuel pumps and lights, and then these wires, which are the fuel level sensor wires, go up to the digidash. So yeah, we've cut those to length, ran those in the car for now, so as we can then split the loom where it needs to split, put it all into sheathing, and then I'll probably wire up the back half like completely, because then it's done and it's not wires in the way. So do those ones first, then probably do the front half of the car, do the headlights, wiper motor, and then after that it's literally power to the doors, for the windows, for the window switches, power to the ECU, coils, injectors, dash, and that's it. Yeah. So you kind of separate the car into three different sections. You've got the front half, which does lights and all that sort of stuff. You've got the back half, does lights and fuel pumps, and then the middle kind of dash part, which does the digidash, the ECU, the engine harness, the PMU, the switch pads, and then yeah, pin it all into the PMU, get it programmed. Good as gold, mate. Easy. Just like that, easy. Preliminary stuff done. Probably the hardest bit is working out. God, that's some bright light. The hardest bit is working out where everything's got to go. That's the hardest bit. It's working out what outputs you've got, because obviously you've only got 16 outputs total, 10 25 amp outputs, and 6 15 amp outputs. So the hardest part is working out what can go where, what needs what ampage, and then getting it all listed down, getting a bit of a plan in place. So yeah, my great sketch. This is some wheels, this is some lights, this is a PMU, that's a dash, that's a fuel pump, that's a battery. So yeah, the hard work is done. Now it's the time consuming, laying all the cables out, cutting it, extending it, pinning everything to the right place. Made some good headway into it. Back brakes are on, chassis rolling, all the suspensions in, the rear subframes in, the fuel tanks in, the engine's in, the box is in. I also spent a load of time today doing a load of AN lines. So turbo drain is done because the old one was too long for the new turbo setup. Turbo drain is done, the oil cooler lines are done, basically the whole oiling system of the whole engine, both turbo and engine oil, like engine oil, cooler and relocation, is all completely done, sealed up. Oh, and I made the new line for underneath the intake, which links the front of the block to the back of the block, because we don't have a heater in this car, so you have to link the block back up. On schedule to get it done in time, but yeah, still a lot. As you can see, it looks like a rolling shell. It's hard, isn't it? Like, it looks like there's loads to do because it doesn't look like a car because there's no panels on it. But when you think about it, if you were to bolt doors on, wings on, yeah, like bolt the quarters on, bolt the wings on, the doors on, and some bumpers, and it would look like a car. And then all it's missing really is the wiring, a radiator, boost pipes, exhaust, glass, and alignment, and then it's a car, isn't it? So it's like, it is a lot of work, but if let's say there was like 3 of us, you could probably smash it out in like 4 days. Yeah, definitely. So it's a lot of work, but we'll do it. We'll see you at Japfest. I have now wrapped all the cables to go into the appropriate places. So the next thing to do is to wire up the fuel pumps. So the next thing is to connect this to the fuel pumps. We've got 2 power wires for the fuel pumps, 2 grounds, and then the fuel level sender wires. For fuel delivery, on my new build, we have Frenchie's Performance drop-in hat. These are probably one of the best, other than maybe, well, they're probably on par with Radium for drop-in hats. Very nice and easy to use with a stock tank, but can house twin pumps and all the fuel you could possibly need. So we're going to get this out of the box now, get the pumps wired up, get the fuel level sender wired up, and get this fitted into the tank. So with it, you get filters, you get a couple of feed pipes with a, so you can run twin feed, obviously with that to attach to the hat on the end, pre-wired plug. Unlike a lot of things, comes with connections for the pumps, and then it comes with the Deutsch connectors for the fuel hat, for the outside of the fuel hat, which is very ideal because a lot of them don't come with that. Twin pump bracket, so it houses both your pumps on the bottom, slots into stock position in the tank. And then here is the billet hat. That again fits into stock location. You've got your feed there that connects. Yeah, should do the trick. So fuel pump setup's all done. Both pumps, twin 450 wall rows mounted on the bracket. Hat's all done. All the wiring's done. Lines are all done. Everything's paint marked. Then if you look over here in the boot, you have fuel pump wiring here. That's pumps, power and feed, ground. Always making noise. And then we got a fuel level sensor there. Not been filming quite enough because we've been just flat out trying to get it done. Bonjour. Have you done it?
Definitely not long enough. We've decided, me and Josh both.
That's a daily struggle, isn't it?
You're not long enough.
I'm not long enough.
Another day, flat out on the S15, trying to get it done. Boost pipe's done, intercooler's done. Vibrant elbows on the end, we just got to clean the powder coat off and polish the end cans up. I am still wiring looming. So, give you a bit of an update since earlier. I think earlier we finished the fuel lines, so they're all completely done. Tightened up, paint marked, so that's good. We now have the battery mounted. In a nice spot. T7 Designs battery case and Odyssey battery. And we have power distribution block. So we have a block up here where we can run main power cable to, and then from that point we can run main power cable to the PMU, which is up there on these rubber things, to try and 1, reduce the heat from the tunnel, 2, reduce vibrations. It's not going to do a lot, but it will reduce heat a little bit. This is going to get some funk gold tape on it. Then what else have we done? Yeah, so 1 power cable will go from this to that, and then we'll have another cable going through down there to feed the alternator and the starter motor. What we've still got left to do, loads. Full exhaust, screamer pipe, front wiring loom, so to do the front lights and the fans and the wiper motor, make up the rad, make the rad cowling, and then mount the fan on that, put the radiator in, radiator hoses, brake booster, brake lines, bleed the brakes. What I'm doing right now is a bit of a mess in here right now because we've just been flat out doing everything, and this does my head in. Like, it gives me a headache. Anyway, it's more important to get this done. So what I've been doing at the moment is wiring up kind of like under dash loom. So we've got 2 Blink Marine can pads, one there, one is there. So I've just been wiring those up. We've got a Link AIM Digidash that goes on that bit. That's for 1 can pad, that's for another can pad, that's a ground for that loom. Then down here we have, this is the plug that goes to the ECU, which again connects to the ECU via can, so that it can communicate down there. So I'm going to get the dash loom situated in there now, get that pinned into the PMU like master plug, and then I'm going to mount the Cartec. So we've got this Cartec battery isolator, which is kind of like the newest of solid state battery isolators that you can get. Mount the Cartec, and then I'm going to start making battery cables. And then we're pretty close to being able to at least switch the PMU on, test the back, test the fuel pumps, test the rear lights, make sure that's all working. If that is, we can kind of close that section off. Then another thing I made earlier is this, which is interface harness. So that connects to the engine loom. There. That connects to the engine loom, which also powers the ECU, powers the coils, powers the injectors, blah blah blah. And then this end, I need to pin this into the PMU plug, into the right outputs, so as when we press the button, then we can program the cam pads. So it's basically when we press the right buttons, the PMU will switch ECU on, and then obviously live up coils, injectors, and so on. That also has the start signal on it, because the start signal runs through the Wiring Specialties harness. So out of the PMU to that wire, we need to run the start signal. This also has a ground on it, which is a ground for the ECU loom again. Pin that into the PMU plug, and then we should be in a position then where we can power up the ECU, which means the engine has power. We can put power cables to the starter, the alternator, and the PMU. So then that all has power. The dash should have power. Can pads will have power, which is going to control everything. So yeah, we should be in a situation then where in theory, even if we haven't done the front half of the loom, i.e. the front lights and the fan and stuff like that, we can start it. When we're in a position where we can start it, we can make sure it's all good, make sure everything's working as it should. I'll crack on with this now, get back to you later on. We're getting somewhere. Cartec battery isolator is mounted. Negative terminal is made. Main battery feed from battery to the like power bridge block sort of thing is made. The feed from that to the PMU is made. The feed from the block to the starter is made. I am literally just making the one from the alternator to the starter now, which you can see there. Once that one's made, I need to make a engine block to chassis ground, and then that is all the main power cables made. So yeah, got a lot done today. I'm absolutely knackered. I think it's about 11 o'clock now. But we've got not very much time to get this done. I want it running this weekend, which is in 2 days. So yeah, no time to mess about. We're just getting it smashed out. So show you how I make power cables. So power cables, we usually use 35 cable because it's rated for enough amps. So you get these fittings, a little press tool like that. Yeah, with those fittings, line it up with your cable. Line it up with your cable. Mark where you need to cut your sheathing back to. Cut that back. Then, so once you've marked your sheathing using that to how much you need to cut out, you can then, you can't quite see, there you go, get that in there. Before you do that, get some heat shrink. So obviously a lot of people would do a power cable out of red, but we want to keep everything nice and clean, so everything's out of black, and then anything that is a power positive cable, we put red heat shrink over the ends, because then you can identify what cables are negative and what cables are positive. So the negative one is wrapped in black. So yeah, get your heat shrink over first. Make sure that end of that is as straight as possible. Get it into your press fitting, which can be a little bit tight sometimes. You just kind of have to work it in there and turn it. Right, something to bear in mind when you're making power cables is often the cable is quite thick and can be difficult to put a twist in it. So you need to make sure that your fittings are orientated in whatever way they need to go. So like on this one, that one is going to be on the starter motor, which is like because of how I'm running the cables, it wants to be like that. And then where it joins the alternator, it needs to be at a similar angle, but ever so slightly down. But obviously the terminal on the starter is that way, and the terminal on the alternator is the opposite way. So your cable needs to be almost opposites. So it's important to make sure you bear that in mind, the orientation of your cables when you're running them, because obviously it's quite a thick cable and you can't always get a twist on it where you need, and you don't want it under tension for anything coming loose. So I'm going to get this one in and then we'll show you all of the cables. So that's another one made. End heat shrunk. I will now show you what I mean about the orientation. I don't know, oh God, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, but basically if you look down there, starter motor tab is there, that's the cable coming from the power block, and our cable needs to come out, go along, and then join the alternator pin down there. So you've got to make sure you get your orientation right, so as your terminals go on and they're not sat under tension. So that's another one made. End heat shrunk. I will now show you what I mean about the orientation. I don't know, oh God, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, but basically if you look down there, starter motor tab is there, that's the cable coming from the power block, and our cable needs to come out, go along, and then join the alternator pin down there. So you've got to make sure you get your orientation right, so as your terminals go on and they're not sat under tension. So we're currently on to doing the downpipe and exhaust. So this is the bottom, well, kind of middle of the downpipe, flexi in there, feed band at the bottom. Now we just got to get this Johnny on there.
You're not there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck me. Hell yeah.
The Cobra. Ready to test fit this in there. Just going to go down there nicely. So we're 3.5 inch, literally from the top. Then we're going to go all the way out the back, 3.5 inch. Got flexi down there. V-band at the back. Should be mint. Are you ready for me?
I'm right there.
You ready? I'm coming into you. Naughty, why are you teasing me? So yeah, 3 inch to 3.5 inch adapter, 3.5 all the way down. We've got a flexi down there. It's nice and away from the firewall to hopefully keep as much heat out of the car as possible. Right, bring me down, brother John. That looks really nice. Don't do that. That'll do. Right, go back up. No, for weak legs, mate. He's being rude about my legs. Let's take a look at this, little Johnny. Oh, look at that. Very nice. Oh, mate.
Oh, I need a bit.
Little bit of twisting,
bit
that.
like
Should
that.
be perfect, yeah. We'll cut that about there.
Needs a pie.
Little bend in there. Come round here. Carry on. Although we can't.
Close to the floor then. So we go straight there, and then bend it up like there, and then it'll be a little bit better.
That doesn't need to bend up. Just bend. Just cut here.
Yeah.
And when we cut there, we can put the bend on a bit of a cut. The cut on a bit of a bend. The only problem is, I've just thought about.
What?
Probably need to put the prop in before we go past here.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
You got that?
Yeah.
Probably should do that then.
We are now on to brake lines. We've got the diff in, shafts are in, exhaust is probably 70% done, boost pipes done, etc. Fuel lines are all ran, so the next thing is to run some brake lines, because then once done brake lines, we can put the rad in, and then every fluid holding system on the car, and the clutch as well, we can put that in. Then every fluid system on the car can be sealed, and there's a chance that this weekend you can have it running and driving with brakes, which would be ideal. Run and stop, and make noise out the back rather than the front. So we have full brake line kit, which Proline braided lines have kindly come on board with us for the car, and have made a full custom kit to the measurements that I asked for. They have absolutely great service. We use their lines all the time in the workshop for customers' cars and for my own cars. Really quick delivery. Never had a problem with any of the products. So get these ran in the car now. It's another thing done. So just making the last engine oil line, which is the one that feed out of the engine to the oil filter. So obviously if you're making AN10 lines, mark where you want to cut it, tape it so it doesn't fray. Then if you haven't got the proper cutters, because no one really has them, then you can just carefully cut through it with a grinder. just want to do it as careful as possible to reduce fraying on the end, because otherwise when you make up the line it's a pain in the arse. It's always good practice to wash the line out after you've cut it. Then get your fitting, tiny bit of Vaseline in there, makes it go on a lot easier. Make sure you get all the tape off. Carefully get the line into the cap. And you can push it in. You basically want to push it kind of, it's about that far, depends on the fitting because different fittings are different, but you basically want to push it far enough that you can't get that thread onto it, and then you basically push it back out using the fitting to get the thread on. Again, a little bit of Vaseline helps it not grab on the hose as much, and then helps the thread as well because the threads can be quite weak. What I would normally do is put your line in a vise, hold it from underneath, pop that in from above, and then you can kind of wiggle it till it pushes the line down enough that the thread's close. Then carefully get the thread started. You want to be careful because these threads are pretty weak. You now want to make sure you get your orientation right, because these hoses, some of the fittings have swivel ends and you can turn them. Some of them are fixed, so once you tighten it up it's fixed, and if your engine, let's say that fitting wants to be at that angle off your engine and this end needs to be, like that angle, you got to make sure that that stays at that angle in correlation to that. So it can take a couple of tries when you're trying to make them work. Make sure it's nipped up. Again, wash it out. Yeah, oil pressure, fuel pressure, or temp. Yeah, they're all reading. So, should be able to. Checked all systems, everything's working. So now we're going to put some fuel in it. Oh god, that's heavy. And my fuel hose I haven't fitted yet, so that is all the way down the bottom. First time put some fuel in it, and then we can see if it will start, which will be good. Need some of that, as Jimmy Oates would say, some of that mid-build motivation to get this finished, because it's been relentless. But yeah, we're close. Rim job. This won't fire yet because the camera sensor's not plugged in. Working.
She's in.
Oh, thank God for that. Right, oh, thank God for that.
Sweet.
Sounded cool.
Does, doesn't it?
Remember that Jubilee that you found the other night?
Yep.
You'll get it again. Next, put a radiator in it. Actually, you need to do the fan shroud first. So the next thing is getting a rad and fan shroud, which we're just making at the moment. So we've got a big spout fan to go on, and then a shroud that covers the whole thing, and it's sealed to it all the way, so we can get a good amount of flow through there. So next thing I'm going to do is make up the wiring loom to run to the front, which will do headlights, fan, power, and that's probably all I need at the front. So I'm going to make that now, show you kind of the process. So the first step will be basically to run your cables so you can get your length. Run your cables in the path they're going to go. Decide where you're going to power stuff from. Yeah, measure out the cables. So yeah, going to run the cables to get the lengths, and then we need to basically make a list of all the wires we need in that section of the loom, so I can cut all the right amount of wires at the right gauge, and then we can yeah, start making that loom. We've laid a whole loom out to go from PMU, which is down there, through the bulkhead, down here. We're going to put a ground down there. We've got one headlight here, fan in the middle, headlight there. So we've laid it all out in the car to get our sizes. Then made a list of all the wires we need, the gauge that they need to be, cut them all to length, cut the branches off where they need to go, so as obviously one goes to one headlight, an indicator goes to another headlight, blah blah blah. Put the grounds in, see them there. So ground to the fan loom, we've got 2 ground, 2 powers. Ground to that one, you've got indicator, dipped, side light, main, ground, and then same for this one. We've got indicator in a different colour, and then we've got dipped, side, main, ground, all the way back to here, and then they're all back here. Got a list of what we need. So now that we've got all that laid out and planned out, I'm now going to wrap up the loom so as we can then put some plugs on the end of it, pin it back to that end, put that into the PMU. Is rewire the fan to be able to take a 4-pin to be able to take the plug, and then we can decide our outputs on the PMU for the fan, and then put that in. By that point, Rafe is currently drilling out, cutting out the shroud, so as we can bolt the shroud to the rad, bolt the fan to that, and we can put that in the car, put the rad hoses on it, we can fill it with coolant, make sure the fan's working, and if all is well, we can fill it with coolant, make sure the fan's working, run the car up to temperature. We've made the fan shroud, made the loom for the fan, I've ran that into the inside, I'm about to pin that into the PMU now. Test that, and then we're going to fill it with coolant and run it up to temp. So we've got a Koyo rad with a big 60-inch spout fan, and then custom made shroud which is all sealed to the rad. It's got a load of flaps in it, the spout flaps. When the fan is sucking through more air than is being pushed through against the front, i.e. if you're not driving down the road, you're just sitting in traffic, the flaps stay shut against the shroud. The fan does all the work, so you get maximum flow. When you're going down the road at a high enough pace that the air trying to pass through the rad is more than the fan is trying to push, the flaps just blow open from the wind. So I'll show you them. They're down here. So see them? They all sit on the core, on the shroud, and basically when the air coming through the front gets higher than what the fan can suck through, these just blow open and let more air through. And then obviously big fan there, sealed to the shroud. Shroud is all sealed to the core. So that should hopefully be as efficient as we can have the front rad, really. So we're going to pin that into the PMU now, test the fan's working. If that's all working, fill it up with coolant, run it again, get it up to temp, see how the fan works. The next thing we can get on with is wrap up the front loom. So we have a brand new pair of D-Max headlights, because my old headlights, yeah, they broke. I broke a bracket on them once. Aside from that, lenses are really old. Lacquered them once, but they still didn't really last very nicely. So we got, and these are actually pretty reasonable price. So we got a brand new set of D-Max S15 headlights. So let's get these out of the packet. Take that off. Carefully. Ooh, look at that. Brand new. So we need to adapt to the back of these, pull these plugs off, cut them off, put them onto a different plug, and then put the plugs onto the chassis harness, and then we should have, and then pin them into the PMU, and then we should have headlights. Next step of the build is going to be heat protection. Something that's super important on drift car, because obviously you are at high amounts of heat all the time. Intake side doesn't really matter, nothing really gets hot there. But this side, we need as much protection as possible. So luckily we have probably the best companies going for sure. In heat protection, we have them on board for the project. So we've got a parcel from them where we've got turbo blanket, wastegate blanket. We have got some heat sleeving, so as I can sleeve the lines that I'm making now. I'm just making the vacuum lines. Luckily the turbo lines from the old setup are still fine, so still using those. Open this box, but one hasn't, not very easy. So we have in this fine box here. There we go. Lovely packaging. A nice hat. I don't wear hats, but it's a nice hat for entertainment value. Hat. So we have wastegate blanket. Suit the that is to suit the Turbo Smart 50mm gate. We have a nice big Turbo Smart turbo blanket to wrap up the Pulsar G3770. Then we have some exhaust wrap, so you can wrap the downpipe. In here it looks like we have a load of AN10, AN6 heat sleeving, and then we have the Velcro heat sleeving, which can go over all the lines afterwards. So that is in that box. And then in this parcel we have a nice big sheet of their adhesive backed heat matting, so as we can get some protection on the car. We've got Funk wastegate blanket on, Funk turbo blanket on, heat protection on all vacuum lines, oil line, coolant line, oil drain. So next is to heat wrap the downpipe. So sadly, this lovely downpipe is going to have to get wrapped up because we want all the heat to stay inside it rather than in the engine bay. The downpipe is wrapped. We can put that back in, run the car, get it to dry it, and then once it's dry we'll silicone spray it to keep it nice for as long as possible. So I'm going to bang that back in the car now. We're ready for dyno. It's like midnight, we're on a dyno tomorrow, but we're ready. Ignore that blue horrible hose. But yeah, we're going to get it off the ramp now, get the seat in it. Glass is going in the morning, catch can on, and it's ready for dyno. Glass going in today. Got a seat in it. It's going on the dyno today. I'm going to head down there in just a minute. Crazy at this point in the project when the glass starts going in. It almost instantly looks like a car, even though it's not at all. Mad rush last night, finished at 1:30 in the morning. Back in this morning. Mad rush this morning, got a catch can on, fuel pressure sensor. Oh shit, that reminds me. I need to take a spare fuel pressure sensor. Spare one. Now, mad rush. Glass is in, because didn't want to have to make poor Mark tune it with no glass in it, because that would be probably quite depressing. So glass is in. Last night I set up all the suspension briefly, haven't aligned it, but set it all up, roughly set up the heights, went through, nut and bolt checked it all, tightened up the rear end, because I'd left everything loose so as I could basically do it all at once. Sorted all that out. This morning got the catch can on, made a new catch can line, finished the headlight wiring looms, so those are ready to just plug in, pin into the PMU, and then they will work as well. Got the inside cleaned out, got a seat in it, because you can tune it in a seat obviously. I checked for leaks, did the coolant overflow hose. And yeah, we're now on the way to Abbey Motorsport for Mark to do some tuner sandwiching on it, get it sorted. Shouldn't be too bad because it's still on the old tune and the turbo's not that different. It's a G3900 whereas it used to be a G3770, so it's not like everything needs to be revised. It was a good working car as it was. So although it's a new car with new loom and new chassis harness and new shell and everything else, we know that the setup works and the everything's pretty much the same as it was before. So we should just be able to go through, check parameters, set up a bit of an ASBO map with some flames and whatnot, and hopefully it shouldn't take too long for us to get through all that. Oh, there's a lorry coming, probably can't pull out on that. So yeah, I'm going to run over there, get it tuned, get it on the dyno. As soon as it's tuned, it's got brakes, the suspension is done. I can fit the kit, set up the heights, do an alignment on it, get the lights fitted, get the doors fitted. I need to run looms to the doors so as door window controllers have power, and then I'll just use stock door cards. I need to cut the door cards to suit the cage, I need to put the boot on it, and then I think we're there. So we're really close. Get it tuned today. As long as that goes all well, then should have a couple of days of bolting it all together, getting all the panels together and whatnot, and then should be good to take for a drive. Take for a rip potato chip. Yeah, do your hair. So we're all loaded up on Abbey Motorsports dyno, ready to get the 15 all good to go again. So it's quite similar to last year, apart from slightly only Fools and Horses clip. It's still the same S15, it's just got a new shell and a new wiring loom, new suspension, new subframes, new fuel tank. It's got the same engine though. But this year we're running Pulsar G30 900. Got John in there. We've got a new 6-boost manifold on there, different intercooler, different rad, electric fan setup instead of the viscous this year. We'll see how we get on with that. It's on an ECU Master PMU, and then yeah, other than that it's quite similar. Same diff ratio and all that stuff. So we're going to get it loaded up now, and then see how we go on. So we're running into it in a minute, and this bit, new intercooler setup, it's absolutely perfect. Making 570 wheel at 1.5 bar, she's going to be a ripper. Everything's efficient as it's been as well. IATs are down around 20 on a run, which is so much better than before. So yeah, over the moon with the new build, can't wait to drive it. So we're done on the dyno. We've got the graph up.
Tab across.
Yeah, I think it's finishing before it finishes.
1 minute. This is only hot 4 runs then.
So we're done on the dyno, and car's all sweet, no issues. Runs like a dream. What did we make? 575 wheel?
Yeah, it was 575.
575 wheel, which is going to be a ripper. That's a good 100 horsepower more than we had for last year. IATs are mint, a lot better than last year as well. Yeah, it's been great. Now I just need to make it not a rolling shell and actually be a car. So yeah, we're going to get it off the dyno, or got it off the dyno, get it out, put it in the trailer, and then finish. We can finally finish it. So there we go, 578 wheel. So that is probably 640, 650 horsepower crank-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably something like that. Plenty of power for something that doesn't weigh that much. Should be a blast to drive.